You know what?
It's amazing, and I'm able to pick up sexism now more than I did when I walked in female body.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to season 2 of Queer Conversations, and happy Pride.
Yes.
Today's episode is all about trans life, and I'm here with my favorite trans person in the world, Merrick Moses. Merrick, why don't you tell the guests a little bit about yourself?
Hey, y'all. My name is Brother Merrick Moses. I am a priest, monk, writer, and activist here in Baltimore City, Maryland.
So, Merrick, where can we find you on social media?
Twitter at Merrick Moses and IG at Merrick Moses. Real simple.
Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, but I've reached my limit on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
But I do have another page, Brother Moses. Y'all can find me there if you want. I prefer Twitter. And I'm having issues with Facebook because it's real ratchet right now.
Okay, I understand. That's a whole nother subject.
Exactly.
So let's get into our sizzling subjects for today. So in recent news, the Supreme Court will decide Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prevents the discrimination on the basis of sex and how that applies to LGBT individuals. What's your opinion on that?
I think that anything that bans people based on sex, gender expression, or gender identity is inherently illegal.
I agree.
And against the founding principles of the Constitution. And when we talk about sex discrimination, when we talk about trans people, a lot of that has to do with people thinking that someone should act or behave or dress in a certain way based on their genitalia. And we know that's
exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned about what's in your pants, but that's Sharon.
Yes. But some people are.
I know, right? That's the crazy part, that you are really basing whether you're debasing my discrimination or you can discriminate against me because of what is in my pants.
Right, and then they try to use the Bible, and I'm over that.
Yeah.
I'm over that.
Come back season 3.
Yes.
We're going to do a whole, season 3. So, now, recently in Dallas, there was a black man who was paid, well, I shouldn't say he was paid, he was offered $200 to assault a trans woman. Mm-hmm. The crowd was cheering him on, they videotaped it the whole 9, and after they arrested him, they will charge him with crime for, assaulting this transgender person, specifically because this person was trans in the community. I think what appalled me most was, 1, it was videotaped, and 2, that there were people in the crowd like yelling, "Yeah, beat him up." I mean, isn't that ridiculous in this day and age?
It is, but I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, our people, specifically people of African descent, have been indoctrinated with basically a Christianist philosophy that supports the murder and the maiming of trans people. It is crazy because when we look at gender in the African context, when I talk about the African context, I'm talking about throughout the continent, traditional cultures, not cultures influenced by Abrahamic religions, we do see a paradigm of gender expansion. Right. So, but when we were kidnapped and brought over here, we were fed Christianist ideals. And in fact, world, there's a museum down in D.C. called the Museum of the Bible, and they have what's called the Slave Bible, which has less pages and chapters than the King James Bible because they took all the liberation passages out. So you see, the devil is busy. So the same people who gave us that janky Bible are giving you this janky philosophy that is
not
basically
janky Bible.
I was like, you gotta be you gotta be so fierce and evil to cut passages out the Bible to support your deathly philosophy. And these are the people that we're dealing with today. These are the Trumplandians, the Trump supporters, the evangelicals that support Trump. They are into that slave religion. That's what they're about.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Y'all know I'm a pastor, I'm a preacher, I'm a religious brother, and I work a lot with queer and trans people who have been adversely affected by these philosophies that are actually
who've been beat up by faith.
Right? Yes, and it's time to stop the madness because God is love, and what? Love is for everyone.
It's for everyone.
Thank you, Cousins and Unity Fellowship.
And I'm going to love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly, yes.
So, in other news, there was a trans woman, 17 years old, and was nominated for prom queen, but the school is forcing her to run as prom king. So, the parents are actually suing the public school system right now because they feel like they're forcing her to identify differently than the way she currently feels like she should identify. So I'm bringing this up because we have a lot of kids now who are coming out and saying, I'm trans. They are not, because I know for us in our age group, a lot of us were like, okay, I'm lesbian or I'm gay, and then was like, you know what, that just really doesn't define it. So with children coming out so early, expressing themselves, how are we able to, I guess, provide a space for them to be exactly who they are in the school system?
Particularly, I'm concerned about Black parents and Black children. Mm-hmm. I think that we definitely have to educate our families more, our kinfolk more. I think it actually does start with the church, which is why I'm so concerned. Because a lot of times when you talk to these pastors, they really don't have a framework to work with. Right. But there are people like me, Minister Van Michael in town, and so, Brother Jeff Harris, who actually do training for churches because we can't play these games. But we need to create a safe space for these young people because we hear about a lot of suicides. A young man killed himself. I think it was, I forgot what state it was. And the poor boy killed himself because he was being bullied. And the community got together and bought him a rainbow casket. Mm-hmm. And I hate the fact that our children are going through this. We have no time for this because there's people actually trying to kill us. I mean, that's what we are saying. That's the reality. Right, so we don't need to fight each other because we do have a common enemy. Okay, and I think we need to focus on them and stop doing this internal dance of violence.
Good news, Massachusetts was the first state to pass a law to allow transgender persons to use the bathroom, which I still think is just like, it just still blows my mind, but they can use the bathroom for which they identify. Now, the reason that it blows my mind is because how are we so concerned about where you go pee? To me, I go to the bathroom that has the shortest line. For real. Like, it never once dawned on me that I would be afraid to use the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom. Like, and I've always done that for as long as I can remember. The fact that there has to be a law to give people permission to go to the bathroom that they identify, to me, is just ludicrous.
But we also live in a country founded in part by puritanical idealism, which has a weird, unhealthy obsession with sex and genitals. Because remember now, for most of American history, people were even banned to have oral sex. Remember the sodomy laws? In some states you can only have
anal sex. Right. You can only do it missionary.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah. And so there's a really weird, unhealthy idea, misinformation around sex, which is why STIs are rising. I don't know if you heard about what happened at Coachella. Like herpes went through the roof. Yes. So apparently, I guess there were no condoms. Apparently, it's a whole group of people that's not really educated on how to protect themselves. And so we have a problem in this country with that across the board. I recently met some queer high school students, and they were saying that their sex education is either non-existent or when it does exist, there's no information on queer sex at all. So how are our children being taught to protect themselves? Like, we just need to really stop all this crazy. Like, people are having sex, y'all. Yeah, that's how you got here.
A lot of it. It's
a
the
lot.
truth.
It is the truth. And sex is everywhere.
Exactly. It's on television. It's on the radio.
It's on YouTube. Soap, shampoo, shoes. What you expect?
Deodorant.
Because you don't want to be funky.
Absolutely. At least when you're having sex. Stay right there. We will be right back. So we got to pay our bills. Check out this commercial. We'll see you in a minute. Thank you so much to our signature sponsor, Same Gender Love, Love is Love Boutique, where we are filming our show. Thank you so much, Marvel Laws, for being a supporter of Quick Conversations. So let's get back into it with our guest, Merrick Moses, the pastor, the reverend, the activist, everything. So I have a bunch of questions for you. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
We're about to get personal.
All right. Let's do it.
So, first question, how do you identify?
I am a bisexual, Black, trans.
And when did you know that you were trans?
Well, when I was growing up, just to keep it 100, y'all, I'm 45 years old. So, good. Prayer, water, meditation, to scream, creed, call out your all that. There was literally no words for that, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first trans people that I saw on TV was the Phil Donahue show. Yes, I am that old. And I was like, wow, because I had an internal sense of maleness, but I didn't actually know words and all. Like, that wasn't happening in my home. And so I asked my mother, I said, Mommy, have you ever wanted to be a man? And I realized now, through therapy, that was me looking for an ally in my environment. And my mother said, hell no, I didn't want to be a rusty ass man. So that shut me down for so many years. And so I was always masculine of center. And I realized at age 40 that I was tired of being miserable. And so I decided to employ therapeutic interventions in my gender dysphoria.
Wow. So the clinical definition of trans from the American Psychiatric Association, they talk about gender dysphoria. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It says it involves a conflict between a person's physical or assigned gender and the gender with which he, she, they identify. So when you say that you sought clinical support during your dysphoria, was that like you finally embracing and saying, okay, I'm just having a disconnect in who I present and who I am?
I really actually didn't have words for it, but I knew that many relationships that I had were in a shambles, drinking a little bit too much, dealing with childhood trauma and things of that nature. And so through that process, a friend of mine who actually helped me through this, he was a therapist, and he told me one day that he thought I was trans, and I basically cussed him out because at that time I had a lot of trans animus, right? Right. But what I realized was the trans animus came from an idea of self-hate. It was rooted in my own self-hate. And so as I began to peel back the layers of my own trauma, I discovered that this is who I was, or the name to refer to my discomfort all these years. And so one of the prayers that I had, like I would often pray to God, I just want to live a congruent life. But I always tell people, be careful what you wish for, because you know what? Them prayers that you be praying, when they start manifesting, it's like, woo! Yeah. And so in that prayer of congruence, this is what came up for me. And I did a lot of spiritual work around it, appealed to my ancestors, and it gave me the green light because they saw me before I saw myself.
Absolutely. Praise God. So I'm going to ask you a very personal question. Sure. And most times, just because of the work that I do in the community, in our community, I'm very mindful of what I say. So I'm prefacing this because I need our viewers to understand that this is not something that you just randomly walk up to a trans person and ask.
And I know this girl, honey.
Yes. You will either get beat up or cussed out. And I don't want that to happen to you. Pay close attention. Do not try this at home. So, have there been any medical procedures that you've had to align yourself?
Yes, I have sought surgical interventions. I did have top surgery, and I did have bottom surgery as well.
Now you have to explain. Okay. What is top surgery?
I had top surgery is the masculinization of the chest. Okay. So I had, for lack of a better term, breast removed, and my chest was sculpted into a male chest. Okay. Now, in terms of the bottom surgery, I'm not going to go into a particular procedure, but I will say generally when we talk about transmasculine folks or trans men, we have varying bottom surgeries. Most of them fall in the category of metaplasty or phalloplasty. And metaplasty is basically the clitoris acts as a neophallus in that procedure, and then people have an option of actually having a scrotoplasty, meaning that they will form the lips of the labia into a scrotum. Now, phalloplasty, in terms of phalloplasty, that's actually the creation of a whole new phallus, and those are multi-step procedures. So none of those procedures are required to be a trans man. None of those procedures are required to walk in gender variance in terms of masculinity. Those surgeries are always options. I want to make sure people know that you can be trans without surgery. You can be trans without hormones. You can be trans without all of that. All of this is up to you, and everyone's transition is different.
I'm so glad you said that about how your trans identity is not dependent on hormones or procedures or anything like that, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to take certain steps in order to come out as trans. And I think that's important information for the people at home to know. And also remember, please remember, don't walk up to a random trans person and ask them what's in their pants or what procedures they've had. That is a violation of their personal space and privacy.
And you might get slapped in the mouth.
That's a whole nother story. So then my next question is, what was the turning point in your life that made you say, okay, here I am, I'm living my authentic life?
As I approached 40, I really wanted to live a congruent, wholesome life, and I knew that the life that I had been living was rather broken. And I just got tired of being sick and tired. And when I, matter of fact, coming up on my 5-year anniversary, which is the anniversary that I took my first testosterone shot, which is May 6th, and I'll be 5 years old in trans years. And I must say that I'm living my best life. Literally. Because when I look in the mirror, I see the dream that I had as a child. I see the miracle that God had for me. And I'm just ever so grateful because not everybody gets to walk in authentic truth. Not everybody gets to live the life that they want to live. And so I'm thankful that God saw fit. Yes.
Amen. So then my other question is, and this is trans terminology, what does it mean to pass?
Well, some people say pass and some people say blendable. So when you quote unquote pass or you're blendable, people just see you as man or woman and not as trans. Or what the folks say is they don't clock my T. So I appear to people as a man. Most people assume that I'm cisgender, right? So that would be called blendable or passing privilege. Whereas there are some people who may not have that privilege, and I'm not saying that that privilege is one to aspire to. Right. It just is. And so I think that oftentimes the problem sometimes in trans community is people don't want to be outed, and so they feel like if they are with someone who's not blendable or passable, that they'll be outed, which is wrong. Because if you my kin, regardless of what.
Right. So certain circles they don't want to run in because they're not passive or they're not blendable. Wow. I just learned something new.
And it puts people in danger too, because when you start walking that step, you may not necessarily be where you want to be, but there's always baby steps.
Right.
And so oftentimes in those situations, it's a very dangerous place to be as a trans person. Right. And then there are trans people who choose quote unquote not to pass, who are gender non-conforming, who are non-binary. Right. And so for our non-binary it can be very difficult as well because the world really still is binary.
Right.
You know, and
it's
I'm
still
not saying
male or female.
Right. And the nuances of gender and just gender presentation is a very foreign thing to at least the Western world, the Western European Christian world, not the indigenous people of this continent who had a multitude of genders in regard to ethnicity and all that on this continent. So you know, when we live by Western European Christianist paradigms, we're never going to come out.
Right. I mean, I remember studying, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a religious belief in Latin America where you were considered a god if you possessed both male and female or presented male or female, or no one could determine male or female in you. They were put on pedestals. And then here we are now, it's almost like a fear or wanting to get rid of that person who is not fitting into this cookie cutter image of what Western society feels like we should be.
Oh, absolutely. And if we look at the chief deity of the West, which is Jesus Christ is not even pictured as he was. So really, in the mind of the Westerner, the ideal of divinity is that which is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Jesus, white, right? Which is clearly not what the divine was or is. And anybody that's outside of that paradigm really gets the boot. And so trans people being on the other end, and if you're black and trans, you're totally out of it. And so this is where the persecution comes in. But a lot of people don't dissect these things.
Right. They immediately feel like I'm just out, or they don't like me, or they're not supporting me. But if you understand really what the history is and that root of hate, then you can kind of navigate your way through that process and live your best life.
Absolutely, and I think that it's very interesting that as African people, unfortunately, because of enslavement, we are very ignorant of our history.
Right.
But I do know, and like I said before, in various places of the continent, the range of gender identities and expressions were numerous. And in fact, in the Yoruba pantheon, which is an ethnic group in Nigeria, the largest ethnic group in Nigeria, in the Ifa religious system, in the Yoruba pantheon, there is a deity named Obatala, and Obatala is the deity of wisdom, the white cloth. Obatala has male and female paths. Obatala has male and female at the same time. Conversely, the deity of the depths of the sea is Olokun, and Olokun is a mystery. Olokun is also male and female at the same time. So the Yoruba people, in their brilliance, recognize at the highest of height, male and female exist together. And at the bottom, male and female exist together. So our ancestors had cosmology that supported gender variance. Unfortunately, of course, Western Christian, European culture clearly has no, and clearly has no variety, and that is very patriarchal and misogynist in its very nature.
Absolutely. So my other question, which was more difficult transitioning? Was it the mental or the emotional aspect of it, or the physical, medical side of transitioning?
I view my particular transition as an ongoing transition. Okay. So for me, transition never ends. So I was born in female body and socialized as female, and I lived that way for approximately 40 years. And so it's going to take another lifetime, another 40 years, another lifetime. Hopefully, I'm trying to live to 108, please. To undo that female socialization and conditioning. I think that the most challenging part is the mental part for me, the emotional part for me, the body, yes. However, my dysphoria is not what it was. So when the dysphoria kicks in, because I've compared myself to cisgender men or non-trans men, what God has put on my heart is what God has for you is for you. There are all different types of men in this world. And so understanding that I stand and my trans brothers stand in that panoply of men across the world gives me the courage that I know that we are the evolution of man. And that in trans body, what we see is the transfiguration of an individual into walking in their authentic self. And that itself is a miracle. This is a very rare human experience. Most people don't walk in by gender or don't walk in bodies that are trans bodies. Right. So this experience is a bridge building experience. I understand what it is to live as female, to be female, but I also understand what it is to be male and live male. It's a very rare experience.
And I count it as a privilege. I think I admire it more so than most because I feel certain discrimination. I feel certain privileges are not afforded to me as female. And I often see those afforded to people who are male. So I'm always looking for answers to questions on, so how does it feel to be a man? Like, what happens when you're sitting at the bus stop and it's 9 o'clock at night? You know what I mean? Like, there are certain places that I won't go because I am female. But to be a person that has walked that walk as a woman and now walking that walk as a man, you have a perspective that most of us can't see and can speak to it and it be fact and it be true, because I'm making assumptions about the male experience.
Well, firstly, I think most women understand that we live in a very misogynist society.
Oh, absolutely.
Society, but it's super sexist. I mean, I'm privy to conversations that most women don't hear by virtue of being a man. And I'm like, wow, a lot of dudes are real ratchet out here. I mean, I'm not spilling no tea, but I'm spilling tea. Like, it's amazing. And I'm able to pick up sexism now more than I did when I walked in female body. And I think that's because at some point women are conditioned to accept this craziness in order to keep societal peace.
Exactly. To keep my job. Right. To keep people from calling me the angry black woman. To keep down arguments in the home and in the workplace. That is, oh my God, that is so true.
And so what that often looks like is sisters will put themselves to the side. I mean, we had an example of that here in Maryland recently with a high-profile political issue where black women stepped aside supposedly because she did not have the support in favor of a black man who happens to be homophobic. So that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother show. But that being said, as a black man, now I have situational privilege. So when I'm among black people, there is a privilege that black men have. However, in the greater society, black men are the lowest on the totem pole. It's very interesting because having discussions with other black trans men, some people feel that they have traded their female privilege, right? Because oftentimes white people don't perceive black women as a threat. The same there's a threat, same threat level as a black man.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? And so it rolls out in a very a very crazy way, because as a person that's socialized as female, but now walking in male body, it's a constant deprogramming and catching up on social cues that you weren't taught because of your conditioning.
Right.
Particularly when you enter male spaces and there's a male culture present, because there is a male culture, there is a culture that men have. And I think that it can be very difficult if you're not constantly working on yourself to understand what's happening around you. Like I've been in situations, I work with a lot of lawyers, and I've been in situations in the court where they were clearly sexist. Like, male lawyers, male attorneys talking about female attorneys, calling female attorneys by their first names at the trial table. And it was like, you was Mr. Smith, why is she sitting? Right. You see what I'm saying? Or even how the judicial system works when you have women who are coming in saying that they were sexually assaulted, and you have a jury of supposedly your peers who don't believe you because they don't want to be there that day. Or they don't think that just because he touched your behind, you were sexually assaulted, you should like it. That is a thing in society, and that's what puts women, whether cisgender women or transgender women, at risk, because literally we have people that have permission to assault women. The current occupant of the White House is another example, someone who has literally scores of women saying that he abused them. And is he in jail yet?
No. And even so, feeling like it has an expiration date. Oh, that happened 10 years ago. Well, it wouldn't matter. The fact is, I was assaulted by this person. He was never brought to justice. But that's a whole other topic. But
as I said, my transition is ongoing, and I would like brothers to understand that you never stop learning in this life. You just never stop learning, and it's important that we keep ourselves open to learning.
Right, and we're always becoming.
Absolutely,
we're always becoming.
Humans are supposed to evolve.
I wanted to say thank you, because most of you all don't know this, but I've known Merrick for a while, a long time. And there was a situation last year where someone did not like me 100%, or had some, cross words for me and how I handle myself in certain environments. And I do carry the reputation of being a very strong person, and I speak my mind, and if I believe it, if I said it, I meant it. That's kind of how I carry myself. And this person decided to assassinate me, and was really trying to assassinate my character amongst maybe like 20, 25 people. And I was not part of that group, but it was Merrick who stood up and said, "You will not do this to her, especially if she's not here. You won't assassinate the character of another Black woman, regardless of what it was. And if you had an issue, you should have said something to her directly. And because of your voice, some other people followed suit and made me aware of it. And I appreciate that so much, because I think a lot of times we need allies. We need those voices in the room to say that this is not okay. And this man felt like it was okay to say these negative and horrible things about me behind my back, and thought that everyone in the room was going to agree because of the male privilege that was in that room. And there were some women, but the women that were part of that conversation were masculine centered. And this person thought that it was okay. So I wanted to say thank you for that. So the world knows the character that this person, that my good friend had.
I appreciate that. And my stance is, and this is a culture right now that has a very hostile climate to Black people in general, but particularly Black women, and Black women who are strong in leadership. Whether we look at our city government and people saying, well, don't we need a change of leadership? And we do know, history does tell us that at least for the past, I'm going to go 150 years, I'm not going to go to the 200, but at least 150 years here in Baltimore City, that Black people have been made to feel unwelcome, and there have been laws to try to chase us out of the city, whether they are covenant communities, red line communities, where there's Black people, Blacks and Jewish people couldn't live in certain areas, or there was a point in Baltimore City history where Black people were actually banned from living in Baltimore City, and so we lived in Towson. You see, a lot of people don't know that. And so what I see is a concerted attempt to undermine Black leadership, particularly Black female leadership, because the devil knows who is the strength in the Black family.
Absolutely.
Right, and the condition of our men in this city is such that, attacking a Black woman attacks us all.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And the vulture will pounce if they think
it's okay. If they think they have permission, if they think they have room. And if you notice, if you watch a vulture in the wild, they're not going to attack if there's movement. They're not going to attack if there's noise. They're not going to attack if there's population. You have to be quiet. It has to be dead. For a vulture to attack.
Exactly. Whether we're talking about Angela Davis, who was attacked by Ronald Reagan, Ilhan Omar attacked by all the right for being an anti-Semite. Meanwhile, we know who the real anti-Semites are. Right? You got our own Marilyn Mosby attacked. We've got Kamala Harris attacked. Stacey Abrams attacked. April Ryan attacked. And so it is time for all of us, regardless of our gender identity, but if you identify as Black, we have to stand up, because at this point, we have no choice but to unify.
Right. We have to support each other. So, a couple of my final questions. What advice would you give a young trans person?
One, if you can't, seek therapy. Therapy is invaluable because it helps you sort out your feelings, and it helps you create space between your thoughts so that you can parcel out what's right for you and what's not right for you. Two, hormones are not the answer to everything. They will not answer all of your problems. They won't pay your bills. And it is medication. They are serious. And so going on and off is not suggested, because it can have an adverse effect not only on your physical body but on your mental health. So you need to make sure that you're in a place where you can take medication carefully and regularly, right?
Right.
And three, surround yourself, if you can, with supportive people. Get information that is correct and accurate. I love my friends. I do. I love Facebook sometimes, right? But just because it was said on Facebook
does not make it fact.
Right, does not make it fact. Like, for instance, there was rumors that you could take any amount of testosterone. No, you'll stroke out. And I saw that in a group. And so you can't believe everything on the internet. And for a lot of young trans folks, the Facebook, the internet, is really the only way to learn about themselves.
Right.
So it's important that you actually have real conversations with real people.
Medical
professionals. If you don't live in a supportive environment, you can look stuff online to get support. So I would advise you to really get support and do your research. You must do your research.
And knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give my younger self? One, you are always fabulous, no matter what the bully said.
Yes.
You are always brilliant, no matter what you said. And there is hope. That God is real. That dreams really do come true. That the ancestors really do exist. And that all they want us to do is to be happy and walk on our purpose.
Amen. We got to pay some bills. We're going to step over to our Queer Conversation Street Talk. Thanks so much to In My Lane Entertainment. We'll be right back after this.
Hey y'all, this your girl KK. I'm down here with Street Talk, In My Lane's Thursday night event. Let's take it to the street, see what the people gotta say. Alrighty, we here with, what's your name?
Gray sun, gray, like the color like the sun in the sky.
Alright. So, question for you. What is the gayest thing you ever done?
Oh Lord, I went to school in heels. I went to school, high school, honey, in a yike, baby. I went in there with a motherfucking heel on, and everybody was just like, it was the most shocking thing they ever saw in their life.
Did you kill it?
Definitely. You see it right now? What's that?
Give me some.
Yes.
What I'm talking about. In school, in heels. Don't get no better than this.
Boom. Quick conversation.
Alright, we're back, and what's your name?
Heaven.
Heaven. Alright, so Heaven. Sex on the first date or no?
You gotta test it out before you be stuck with it.
I'm just saying, you gotta test it out first, right?
You have to.
And if it's trash, then what?
You got to go where it belongs, in the garbage.
Deuces. Alrighty, what's your name?
Tanisha.
Alright. Are you single, taken, or in a situation?
Yes.
Which one? Single, taken, or in a situation?
Yes.
Wait, which one? I think it's a situation at this point.
What was the question?
Are you single, taken, or in a situation?
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, I am identified as a woman.
Wait a minute. Are you single, taken, or in a situation?
I'm single.
You're single. So are you ready to mingle?
Yeah.
All right, y'all heard it here. Ready to mingle. Let's get it. Alrighty, what's your name?
KIP 365.
Alrighty. So, what was your worst sexual experience? Was it stank, a bad lay, or pillow princess?
Pillow princess, definitely.
So she wasn't doing nothing at all?
No. I had to do all the work.
What are y'all doing out here? Can't just be laying down all cute. Like, do something. Jesus.
Thank you again to In My Lane Entertainment for allowing us to film our Street Talk at their Thursday night event. Thank you again to our guest, Merrick Moses, my buddy. Once again, tell our guests how you can be reached.
Twitter and IG at Merrick Moses.
Awesome. And thank you again for tuning in. First episode of season 2 is in the bag.
Hey, we lit.
Look out for our next episode coming up next month. Queer Conversations, as we are changing the world one conversation at a time. Good night, everybody.
Hey.
Happy Pride.
Hey.